Hi there, and welcome to Graham's Guide Friday Live, this Friday, the 3rd of December. Welcome to summer. 2 days, no, this is our third day in summer. I can't count. Alrighty, so today I want to start by just highlighting an announcement by Tanya yesterday as we start to approach assignment two. And I'm sure some of you have already looked at assignment two and starting to decide which of those case studies that you would like to look at. This announcement from Tanya is it's the second one that she posted yesterday. It's about academic integrity and your personal and professional brand. And we're talking about the possibility of plagiarism, or at least really what we're talking about is guiding you to avoiding plagiarism. Now, sometimes plagiarism is a deliberate act, and people absolutely attempt to get around the system, and one of the systems we have is Turnitin. But because most of the ELAs in this unit have been teaching this unit for about 7 years, or around 5 to 7 years, I've been here 7 years, and many of the other students have been here, many of the other ELAs have also been here a long time. We actually don't really need Turnitin to identify plagiarism, although it is incredibly helpful. We are experts at interpreting the Turnitin originality report, and that means that we tend not to look at the percentages of text similarity. So what Turnitin does, it recognizes similarity between the text in a submitted assignment and the text of anything else out there on the internet, including all of the previous assignments submitted by students at universities all over the world. So it's an incredibly huge database, but people try and beat Turnitin. And as I say, the ELAs here, we recognize plagiarism fairly quickly. Now, that's not to say that all plagiarism is a deliberate act. Sometimes plagiarism occurs indirectly, and this can especially happen with students who are study buddies, or even students who don't have study buddies, but maybe they know a student who was previously enrolled in this unit, and the previous student said, "Oh, look, here's what I did for assignment two. It might be helpful to you." Well, actually, that's not being helpful, because unfortunately, once you see somebody else's work, you can't really unsee it. And this is true of the essay sharing websites that are on the internet as well. So if you can put in our unit code, and it will spit out many previous assignments that have been submitted to this unit, some of which are no longer, we change the assignments because the unit evolves. But we have had students submit assignment two from an assignment they found on the internet, but it was from like 5 years ago. So their version of assignment two was nothing to do with the current assignment two. And so that's a telling tale that that student probably hadn't even looked at the question of assignment two. But the other thing, when I mention study buddies, so we encourage students to work together, and in fact that, we encourage that discussion in the discussion boards. But sometimes students are also in private discussions outside the discussion boards, and you may have in-depth conversations about the assignments. Sometimes that shared conversation can end up in your assignments as collusion. So collusion probably sounds a bit worse than what it is, but it's often is accidental. So you've been talking to another student in this unit, and you both sharing the same information, and that shared information ends up in your assignment, and sometimes it ends up in the same order. So in fact, just the fact that those ideas are shared ideas means that the work is not 100% your own work. You're actually using ideas that you shared with another student, and that's inadvertently plagiarism or collusion. So if you do have a study buddy, one way around that is, and an easy way around that in assignment 2 is just to choose different case scenarios, because you don't have to choose a case scenario from your chosen field of endeavor. You might be a teacher, but you find one of the other case studies is actually more interesting than the teacher's case study. In which case, if you've got a study buddy, one of you might do the teacher case study and one of you might do the psychologist case study or the journalist case study. But it's a good idea to try and, if you have a study buddy, to steer clear of doing the same case study, because your work may end up being similar. And I've got to take a drink because I'm dying here. I wish I had a glass. I don't have a glass. I just have my whole bottle of water, which is frustrating. Because I go through a whole liter of this water a day. It's actually a liter and a half. Oh, well, that was fun. All right. Hopefully I've covered that aspect of how to avoid plagiarism, and we'll talk more about that as the teaching period goes on. But I thought that was worthwhile mentioning now, because I know, as I said, many of you are looking at assignment 2. So, what are my 3 things I want to look at today? I want to look at the moment you're practicing talking about language registers in assignment 4. So this is great. So there's a example in the assignment 4 discussion, and it encourages you to evaluate that example and discuss that evaluation with your fellow students. In fact, you write up your own post talking about the unspoken messages and the spoken messages within that example. This is a really great thing to be doing, because this is a practice for going into assignment 2, where it also asks you to talk about the spoken and unspoken messages within a piece of correspondence. So completing the Week 4 task this week has a very practical purpose to it. So I highly recommend everyone get in there and do that. So supporting literature. Let me go into the assignment 2 brief, because can explain what I'm talking about with supporting literature more clearly. So if we look at the assignment details, and what I'm talking about here is sources you use to support your work. And they can be academic sources. Most of the time they will be academic sources, but it might also be things that are not an academic source, like a code of ethics. So a code of ethics is a professional standards document. It's not really an academic source, although you are using it as an academic source in your response. This is not where I want to be. I want to go down to, and look, actually, while I'm here, I will just quickly go into these. There's just a couple of things I wanted to mention about these. James the psychologist, because sometimes students get off track with the case study, but there's nothing, people don't often get off track with here. But when you're looking at the case studies, concentrate on the professional responsibility and standards of the lead character in the case study. So this is about James as a psychologist. So there are other characters within this scenario, but your focus should be the professional responsibility and standards that James needs to adhere to. And that's the same with all of these case studies. Maria, the public relations officer. Okay, public relations manager. One way people get off track here is they start talking about land rights and native title. So the focus of this, we ask you to look for, to identify, ethical issues, but the ethical issue is separate from the subject matter. So in this, the subject matter they're talking about is land rights and native title, but that's not the focus of your response. The focus of your response must be the professional responsibility and standards that Maria needs to adhere to. So don't write a response that talks about native title and land rights. The next one is AJ the teacher. So sometimes people get sidetracked and they start talking about child protection laws and those sorts of things here, but that's nothing to do with AJ's responsibility and the standards he needs to adhere to as a teacher. That's outside of his role. So you need to focus on AJ's role and what professional standards he needs to adhere to. You should not be discussing child protection laws and the ethical issues behind child protection laws. You need to find the ethical issue that AJ has as a teacher in his role. And Simon the journalist, was there anything here? No, it doesn't. People don't tend to get off track here. And what's the last one? Jill the political scientist. No, people don't tend to get off track here either. So that's all good. Where do I want to go to? I want to go to the assignment criteria. Okay, now this is the topic that I want to talk about, and I'm talking about the supporting literature. So there's an opportunity to use 4 citations to 3 documents, three references. Now, the first one talks about professional standards. So in this first answer, for identifying an ethical problem, you need to refer to a professional standards document, and that will be probably a code of ethics or a code of conduct. And that's one source. So that's your source that you could include to support your discussion to answer the first question. In the second question on spoken and unspoken messages, it says here to incorporate ideas from the week 4 learning materials. So in this case, we're talking about the Baldovino video. And so there's an opportunity to cite and reference the Baldovino video. So now we have, in your reference list, we've got 2 references. We've got a code of conduct and we've got a reference for the Baldovino video. For the third question, it's fairly obvious. It's talking about the future work skills, and they want you to identify future work skills from the future work skills document. So that's the future work skills 2020 report. So this is your third opportunity to cite academic literature. And you could, this is something you could cite and add to your reference list. Finally, in this last question about finding a solution for the problem, it asks you to, it asks that your response demonstrates consideration of the needs of the stakeholders and the professional standard. So this is talking about a code of conduct or a code of ethics. So this is another opportunity to support your answer with a citation to code of ethics or a code of conduct. So in this case, you already mentioned a code of conduct in your first answer. So you can just put a citation here that will take your reader to your reference list, and they will find the same document there in the reference list. So in this case, I see an opportunity for 3 documents. There's the code of conduct or code of ethics for question 1 and 4. And for question 2, there's the Baldovino video. I'll also provide a link to another piece of supporting literature by Brown. And Brown also talks about language registers, and I'll add that when I post this. So that's Baldovino and the future work skills. So there's 3 opportunities for citing and referencing in assignment 2. And that's all I wanted to talk to you about this week. I hope that information is useful to you. I know this video has gone a little bit longer than I expected, 15 minutes, but hopefully you found that useful. I'll catch up with you in the discussions, but from me, it's bye for now.